We were talking earlier or late last week about the private sector and some of the issues of the private sector. And I've always said, follow the money. I mean, you want to find out what's going on in America today, follow the money. If it's political, if it's business, if it's academia, whatever the issue may be or not, follow the money, and it'll lead you to a place of truth and justice. I found an interesting story that a reader or a listener to this show sent me an article from CNBC. I think it was Friday is when he sent me this article, and it affirms some of the suspicions that I've always had about the private sector and the fact that the monetary benefit of business knows no bounds. There have been a lot of recent advancements in science and medicine. Those recent advances in science and medicine have put cures within reach for diseases that have plagued humankind for centuries and centuries. In a recent report, Goldman Sachs, you've heard me talk about Darth Vader, Goldman Sachs being the Darth Vader of the free market. Goldman Sachs analyst posted an uncomfortable question that quickly sparked conversation and even some criticism. Goldman Sachs asked a biotech company if curing patients is a sustainable business model. Let me clarify. This is in an April 10 report of Goldman Sachs and their analyst with healthcare providers or these biotech companies who are into the regenerative medicine, gene therapy, a lot of blood trends, a lot of things that I don't understand at all. I mean, I have no idea, but they're cutting edge therapies in regards to acquiring cures for major issues that have plagued humankind for a long, long time. Goldman Sachs is basically asking a biotech company, are we curing too many people? Are we leaving too much money on the table? The report, and I'm not going to name the company, but the report speaks of a treatment for hepatitis C, which cures more than 90% of its patients. Here's where Goldman Sachs enters. They are the financier of this biotech company. They are the ones who have a financial interest at stake. They are seeking a return on that investment. And they are deeply concerned. Goldman Sachs is deeply concerned that the long-term profits will not be as they predicted if the companies are actually curing the patients who would buy more of your treatment. And Goldman Sachs brings as an example one particular drug that got approved by the FDA. And in 2015, they have found the drug cures more than 90% of patients. This is one of the most interesting stories imaginable to me. It's not about Hannity. It's not about Trump. It has nothing to do with Hannity. It has very little to do with Trump. But it's about the state of affairs in our endeavor toward more and more and more financial reward. And I think when you really look at some of the problems in America today, I'm not blaming the burning desire to be profitable by any stretch of the imagination, but I found this to be an example, a clear example. And once again, I didn't stumble on this. A listener was kind enough to forward it to me. But we've got these advanced cures. We've got these biotech companies that are doing amazing work in realms and fields that I know very little about. But as an example, Goldman Sachs, in their analysis as to whether or not to invest in some of these biomed companies as venture capital. I mean, in essence, it's venture capital to allow for research and development of drugs and cures to some degree. But they had this treatment for hepatitis C, and the treatment worked better than expected. In fact, the treatment cured 90% of its patients. Here's where Goldman Sachs enters in the equation. In 2015, at the height of sales of this particular treatment of hepatitis C, the U.S. sales of the drug hit $12.5 billion. But as people have been cured, what has happened? Sales have fallen. Goldman estimates U.S. sales for this particular hepatitis C treatment will be less than $4 billion. So in 2015, we were $12.5 billion in annual revenue on this one sole treatment for hepatitis C. This year, the revenue will be less than $4 billion, and Goldman Sachs is deeply concerned. In essence, let's don't beat around the bush. In essence, Goldman Sachs is saying we're curing too many damn people. And we've got all these people with hepatitis C that we need to treat, but we don't need to cure because treating the people allows for a more profitable revenue stream. And if we cure the people, then where is the next revenue coming from? $12.5 billion in 2015, $4 billion this year. If you don't believe that Goldman Sachs is all about the money, there's case in point. And their April 10 analysis that they wanted to keep private, made its way into public, in the public square, got in the hands of somebody who felt it worthy to make public. Now we've got these cutting-edge gene therapies. They're often pitched as one-time cures, and I don't understand much of that. I really don't. I don't understand the regenerative medicine, the gene therapy, the stem cells, but there's a lot of advances being made in the world of biotech. Along with those advances, you need seed money, you need capital, you need investment. And these companies like Goldman Sachs are facilitating some of the investing into these biotech companies, and some of the biotech companies are coming up with cures as a result of the seed capital and the investments made by conduits and liaisons like Goldman Sachs. The money doesn't necessarily come from Goldman Sachs all the time. Goldman Sachs acts as a kind of a broker, a barterer between venture capitalist A and company B, who has these ideas and notions and theories and, research, and out of that comes these cures. And Goldman Sachs is basically saying, we don't know that we're very interested in being in the biotech business because it appears that we're curing a lot more people than we imagined, and that's not a good investment. Now, there is no sense here. I've not seen any indication in this analysis by Goldman Sachs that they say, we're not going to invest in your company if you continue to cure people. We'll invest in your company if you continue to treat people. I just wonder how many of those off-bar conversations, some of the conversations between the high-ranking officials at Goldman Sachs and some of these biomed companies, I wonder how many conversations over dinner or a drink they may have when, look, you're curing too many people. You're not going to be profitable in the long run if you continue to cure this many people. We signed up to treat people. It's much more advantageous for our investors and our mission to be profitable if we treat people. And I've always wondered where the boundaries are for our lust of money. Where are the boundaries when it comes to profitability over curing people who have dreaded diseases? And I think Goldman Sachs is making it fairly clear. They're in the business of money. They're not in the business of curing humankind of these unknown diseases and dreaded, issues that we have as people. That's just an interesting and perplexing dynamic as far as I'm concerned.